The biggest Catholic stories of the week on this special edition of Currents News. A teenager in a t-shirt and sneakers on his way to sainthood, where you can see a piece of Carlo Acutis in New York City.
The miracle is going to happen in Brooklyn.
America's first saint now has a pop-up museum, items belonging to Mother Cabrini on display in Manhattan. Pope Francis is back at the Vatican after a stint in the hospital. What landed him there? We are talking to a doctor about diverticulosis. And there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There is this kind of, question mark of where exactly it went.
An iconic item from The Wizard of Oz found at a Catholic university 50 years after it disappeared. The news starts right now. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Christine Persichetti is off. The news of the week, there is now a blessed in Brooklyn. A relic from the first millennial servant of God, Carlo Acutis, arrived in the diocese early Wednesday afternoon. The 15-year-old tech whiz who passed away from leukemia is beloved the world over, and Brooklynites are excited to have a relic of the possible saint in their midst. Jessica Easthope has the story of its arrival in Windsor Terrace.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Amazing, and here to stay.
Particles of his hair.
These strands of hair belonging to Blessed Carlo Acutis were presented to Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio Wednesday.
Oh, it's very nice.
The relic of the first millennial considered for sainthood will travel to Catholic schools in the diocese, then will be displayed at Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Bayside.
It's an indescribable feeling.
It's thanks to Pastor Monsignor Thomas Mahalski, the relic is here. He asked Bishop DiMarzio to request it with one thing in mind: evangelization.
He used the internet for evangelization, and now we have to use what he began and use his example to help change.
Acutis, a tech-savvy, normal kid with a life cut tragically short. He died a week after being diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 15. The miracle that led to his beatification involves a young Brazilian boy who was healed of a rare disorder after touching another of Acutis' relics, a piece of clothing. Acutis is admired for using the internet for good, bringing people closer to Christ through the Eucharist.
Young people can seek holiness in their life because this kid was a regular kid. I mean, with the war, what everybody else did, he was on the internet. All of the things that young people do, he did.
The Brooklyn miracle.
By traveling to all of the schools throughout the diocese, young people will get to tap into their own holiness and realize that sainthood looks a lot like they do.
We need saints that speak to the young people, and he speaks to young people. It'd be great. It'd be great for us to get it. And the miracle is going to happen in Brooklyn.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Be sure to stick with Currents News and the tablet as we have continuing coverage of this special relics journey around the Diocese of Brooklyn. Also on display here in New York, the everyday items used by America's first saint. A pop-up museum for Mother Cabrini in Washington Heights will give you a glimpse into her day-to-day life, showing relics from the bed she slept in to the habit she wore while serving the Italian immigrant community in Brooklyn. In honor of Mother Cabrini's birthday and the 75th anniversary of her canonization, we got a behind-the-scenes tour of the exhibit. Tucked away at the St. Francis Cabrini Shrine in northern Manhattan, there's a room filled with relics of Mother Cabrini.
Here we are.
A pop-up exhibit perfectly timed for the saint's birthday and 75 years since her canonization.
That's her calling card.
A calling card, her clothes, a bed she slept in, items the saint owned or used often.
Her laundry mark has a Sacred Heart on it and the number 1.
Her mark adorns her sheets, even her socks. It's how the sisters knew who owned what, as their linens were identical. The room near the most important relic of all, her body. Executive Director Julia Attaway says every year thousands come here for a chance to feel closer to the beloved saint.
Saint, as a Catholic, those are our heroes. And we want to be in contact with those who are great in that way, because we can learn from them and we can hopefully imagine that we can become great too.
Now visitors can feel even closer and learn even more about the saint who built orphanages, schools, hospitals, and served the Italian immigrant community in New York City. This pop-up gives a glimpse into who she really was through the size of her frock.
And when you stand near it, you realize she was really tiny. I mean, she was really a little thing. Her immigration papers, when she became a citizen, it says that she was 5 feet tall. I like the fact that she's so little and so strong. She's a real powerhouse.
To the wear in her shoes.
They're very worn, and we have a lot of letters where she's writing, and she says, oh, I went through another pair of shoes in 2 weeks, because she's walking to get something done.
Little gems of knowledge you can't get from a photo. Sister Antonina Avitabile is a missionary sister of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Mother Cabrini's congregation. She says the exhibit helps to humanize her.
She ate like we did. She slept like we did. She was a person. If Mother could do so many good things, we can too.
Sister Antonina and Julia hope this exhibit helps inspire people to dedicate their lives to helping others, just like Mother Cabrini did. It will remain up at the shrine through the end of August. For more information and to book a visit, go to CabriniShrineNYC.org or call 212-923-3536. Now to the Vatican, Pope Francis is back home after a stint in the hospital, and his recovery is going just as planned. Francis went to Gemelli Hospital on July 4th to undergo a procedure that removed part of his colon. He was cleared by his doctors to leave more than a week later. According to the Vatican, the Pope made one stop before returning home to Casa Santa Marta. He went to the Basilica of St. Mary Major to pray for the other sick people he saw at Gemelli and give thanks for the success of his operation. The Vatican has described his surgery as a planned procedure. The bowel problems the 84-year-old Pope was experiencing are very common in older people, although only 10 to 20% of those with similar problems require surgery. Jessica Easthope spoke with a doctor about diverticulosis.
I was actually quite stunned. In my experience, they use a couple of days before they have, they give the patient clear liquids before he eats solids. But from what I read this morning, he was given a solid food meal already.
The Pope's surgery to remove part of his colon that had narrowed lasted 3 hours. Dr. Robert Tabali of the Catholic Medical Association explained how it was done.
They basically snipped at one end, snipped at the other end, and then reattached almost like you would a garden hose.
The condition is called stenosis. It happens when little pockets form inside the intestines and can cause blockage.
The Pope has been suffering from recurrent diverticulitis, which is an inflammation of pouchings of the bowel called diverticulosis.
Diverticulosis is common and on the rise across the world. In the U.S. alone, nearly 60% of adults over the age of 60 have it. Dr. Tabali says that's because the walls of the bowel weaken.
With age, the inner lining actually herniates through the muscle walls.
Sometimes people who have diverticulosis don't know it because there are no obvious symptoms. But those trying to prevent it stay away from food like seeds and popcorn.
This can get filled with non-digestible food matter and can block fecal material in there, which can lead to infection.
Normally, diverticulosis doesn't become a threat until your late 40s. The only way to prevent it, stay on top of getting colonoscopies. Based on his seemingly speedy recovery, the Pope most likely had his surgery done laparoscopically through his belly button, but he's expected to stay in the hospital for 5 days. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The Holy Father has no plans of slowing down or taking it easy following his surgery. Pope Francis's next official event is the Sunday Angelus, but the pontiff also has plans to travel to Hungary and Slovakia from September 12th to September 15th. No official details on that trip just yet, but on the morning of the 12th, he will celebrate the concluding Mass of the International Eucharistic Conference in Budapest. In the meantime, the Pope is also praying for the people of Germany after the country was hit with the worst rainfall in a century. Severe flooding there has left hundreds missing and at least 103 dead. The Holy Father sent a telegram Thursday night to the President of Germany expressing his spiritual closeness to all those affected. The torrential rainfall has also affected the power supply facilities, leaving at least 165,000 without power. In Cuba's fight for freedom, there is a war of words going on between U.S. President Joe Biden and Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel. At a news conference Thursday, President Biden called the country a failed state that represses its people following massive anti-government protests last weekend. He also offered to restore the internet the government took down and send vaccines as long as outside groups administer them. On Friday, President Cannell responded, calling on the Biden administration to remove Trump-era measures. The protests are the largest in decades. According to reports, more than 100 people are either missing or under arrest. Just the tip of the iceberg for the country with a long history of political strife. Jessica Easthope reports.
Thousands of anti-communist protesters in Cuba chanting Patria y Vida, homeland and life. Saying it means risking arrest. A stark response to a government phrase from when Fidel Castro was in power. Patria o muerte, meaning homeland or death. Across Cuba, Puerto Rico, Las Vegas, and more, demonstrators took to the streets in a show of support.
Cuba is not alone. We backing them up no matter where. Like I said, we're 3,000 miles away, and we have Cuba's back.
Protesters demanding access to COVID vaccines, food, and freedom. Thousands calling for an end to the 62-year-old communist regime. It started back in 1959. Fidel Castro overthrew the military dictatorship that was in place. He quickly converted Cuba into a one-party communist system, ruling for almost 5 decades. His brother Raul took over and recently handed the reins to current president Miguel Diaz-Canel. Under Castro, Cuba's highly contentious relationship with the United States led to the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Cuban Missile Crisis, bringing the two countries to the brink of war. Cuba's economy and political freedoms have suffered ever since, Castro holding a tight grip on the Cuban people. That's what makes these protests so shocking and unprecedented. Anti-government activity usually leads to immediate arrest. But in this police state, people are so hungry and so angry that they're speaking out against a government that for so long they've feared.
We call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence or attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
Cuba is facing its worst economic crisis in a long time. Tensions building for months over increased sanctions first imposed by the Trump administration. The pandemic delivering an additional blow to the already ailing economy. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Brooklyn Bishop Emeritus Octavio Cisneros knows firsthand about the brutal dictatorship that has had a grip on his homeland for more than 60 years. I spoke to him about what the feelings are among the people who are taking part in these massive protests.
People are hungry. People are sick. People had enough of everything, you know. What do we have to lose?
They're desperate.
You know, this is my country, this is my house, and I have nothing.
Bishop Cisneros later released a statement with 4 other Cuban American bishops expressing his solidarity with the Cuban people. There's lots of news out of D.C. this week. President Biden introduced a massive $3.5 trillion budget plan, and lawmakers in the House of Representatives advanced a bill without a key pro-life provision. The legislation, which funds the Department of Health and Human Services, Labor and Education, does not include the Hyde Amendment, the provision that prohibits federal money from going to abortions. It passed the Appropriations Committee by a vote of 33 to 25. President Biden's current spending bill also omits the Hyde Amendment. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio wrote a letter to the faithful urging them to reach out to lawmakers to voice their opposition.
Legislators do look to their constituents. They like to know what the people think. What are the people that are in your district, what do they feel? So that's why it's important that we register our complaint and our disapproval so that we get their attention. There's an absolute prohibition with the Hyde Amendment that these bills can't even be introduced because taxpayer money cannot be used to fund abortions. But once that's gone, then the spigot is open and they could have all kinds of bills that will expand the pro-abortion lobby.
For more information and to join a petition to make your voice heard, go to notaxpayerabortion.com. There's a lot more news headed your way, taking on the pro-life fight in the nation's abortion capital, how one Brooklyn woman is offering prayers to expecting mothers. Plus, a local nun celebrates 70 years of devotion with a special trip down memory lane. And from rumor to reality, an iconic item from the silver screen has finally found its way home after it went missing decades ago. A local Brooklyn woman is taking the fight for life into her own hands. For years, Rose has been standing outside of one of Brooklyn's largest abortion clinics, offering prayers and support to expecting mothers. As Currents News' Jessica Easthope reports, her efforts have not been in vain.
It's a walk Rose has taken for years, with a cross to proclaim her faith and gloves to protect her health. Day after day, she stands outside this Brooklyn abortion clinic on DeKalb Avenue.
Never give up on the fact that we can reach these women. But we have to do it with love.
And Rose hasn't given up.
Even if it's just prayer, somebody has to be there to pray for these women.
She started praying years ago with Monsignor Philip Riley and the Helpers of God's Precious Infants, a pro-life group in the Diocese of Brooklyn, working where they're needed most. New York City is often called the abortion capital of the country. It's where 50,000 of the state's 80,000 yearly abortions happen. 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, Rose stands here, fighting to change that. A calling not without its dangers. She has been threatened.
But then one time one of them says, "You're all alone. Who do you got here? You're all alone." I says, "I have Jesus, Mary, and Joseph."
It's why Rose asked us to shoot most of the footage in this piece on a cell phone and to not use her last name, a way to keep her safe. But despite the dangers, she always comes back, driven by the success stories.
She came to the place 2 or 3 times, and then on the final visit she says, "I can't do it." Praise the Lord. So that gives you an encouragement that it doesn't seem like you're doing anything, but you never know.
Standing quietly on the sidewalk as women enter the center, she hands out rosaries and pamphlets with information for local pregnancy centers. One of them, the Life Center of New York in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Since we're working with Rose in the last 6 months or more, we've had maybe 4 turnarounds.
Fred says when he looks at her, he sees a possible future saint. But for all Rose does, she always wants to do more.
But a lot of times I leave with a very heavy heart because I go, they're there, this thing, and they're going to be there all day. That place is open till 5.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Now to another story of service to others. This one honors 70 years. Sister Mary Gracie Alany has devoted her life to God as a nun. This year she celebrates an important milestone anniversary together with the priest who has been by her side the entire time.
Remember, the organist house used to be there.
A stroll down memory lane for Sister Mary Anthony Gracie Alany and Monsignor Thomas Mahalski.
Not much different other than the signs are different.
This used to be Holy Cross Catholic Academy. Monsignor Mahalski used to be a student, and Sister Anthony used to be his first grade teacher. It was her dream job.
So in the 8th grade, we had to write what do you want to do when you grow up? So I said, I would like to be a teacher.
And she was, all over the world, including 11 years in Peru.
It's great. I've met a lot of people. A lot of kids are still writing to me from Peru.
Contact years later. It's not a surprise to Monsignor Mahalski, who says at his school, she was beloved.
There was no kindergarten here at Holy Cross at that time, so that was our first experience with school. And, all the trial and trepidation and the crying and all those other things that go along when you're the trauma of leaving home and going to school. And she was always very soothing and calming.
They went from teacher and student to mentor and future priest to friends. She and the rest of the sisters of the Holy Family of Nazareth always providing support.
From the first minute I shared that, I heard that call. The sisters were always there when I was in the seminary in Michigan. They wrote me cards, they wrote me notes. When I had my first Mass, they were out there in numbers, celebrating with me.
Support, he's now returning. Helping her to celebrate 70 years as a sister with a special Mass.
I'm not sure how many priests have the opportunity to celebrate a Mass for the 70th anniversary of a sister's religious profession, and also that sister was their first grade teacher.
Years Sister Anthony spent teaching, nurturing, and serving God.
It passes so fast. I don't know. I just, you take one day at a time and just keep on going.
It's easy to see the deep friendship the two of them have spent years building, and they both told me they'll continue to be there for each other. Still to come on this special edition of Currents News, it's a discovery of a lifetime.
Once I opened it and realized what it was, it's movie history.
A piece from legendary movie The Wizard of Oz isn't in Kansas anymore. How a fortunate stroke of luck solved a decades-long mystery straight from the Catholic University employee who discovered it. Catholics in Delaware welcomed a new leader who happens to be a native son of the Diocese of Brooklyn as their next Bishop of Wilmington. More than 900 people attended the ordination and installation of Bishop William Koenig at St. Elizabeth Church in Wilmington on Wednesday. Known as a priest, Koenig was born in Queens and served as the vicar for clergy for the Diocese of Rockville Center. And finally tonight we leave you with a mysterious tale and a shocking ending. It had long been rumored that the Catholic University of America had a piece of movie history in its midst, an iconic part of the film The Wizard of Oz. But it wasn't until a faculty member was cleaning out the school's theater department that he discovered the rumors were true.
My name is Matt Ripa, and I am a lecturer and operations coordinator for the departments of drama and music at Catholic University of America. We knew it was real. There were articles and photos of Father Hartke receiving the dress from Mercedes McCambridge, who was an Oscar-winning actress. She was an artist in residence here at the university within the drama department in the 70s. He used to show it off to all the alumni if anyone came to his office, any student. He passed away in the 80s. From all we knew, the dress was in the chair's office, so it always stayed within the drama department. There is this kind of, question mark in the kind of 2008, 2009 period of where exactly it went, because when I started in 2014, I had heard about the dress and looked in the chair's office in the closet to see it, and it was not in there. Our building is going under some renovations. So I was in my office and I was cleaning the faculty mailboxes. And on top of the mailbox, I see a plastic bag. I thought it was trash just because of its location, and it was sitting next to some empty printer cartridges and stuff like that. So I just assumed it was something I would open up, probably something I could toss as we were organizing. And on the bag is a note taped to it from one of our former chairs, and it said something akin to, "Found this in my office, must have moved up with me in 2009. I opened the bag. Inside the bag is a shoebox, and as soon as I opened it up, I saw that print, that gingham, blue and white gingham. Yelled to my coworker who was, in the room with me, go get gloves. And it was clear as soon as we took it out what it was. It'll be under lock and key and properly preserved until that next step is figured out. I just happened to be the one to find it when I wasn't even looking for it.
Oh, it must have been so cool to be the person that found that dress after all of these years. If you'd like to see more, visit the Currents News Facebook page, facebook.com/Currents News. And that's it for this special edition of Currents News. I'm Emily Drew. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.